Welcome to Disrupting Japan, straight talk from Japan's most successful entrepreneurs. I'm Tim Romero, and thanks for joining me. Today, we're going to talk about fraud. Online fraud, hackers, scams, identity theft in Japan, and what exactly we can do about it. Now, I've been involved professionally in IT in Japan for more than 20 years. And that includes both enterprise-scale big IT and startup-scale little IT. And corporate Japan has always had a strange relationship with computer security. On one hand, companies are very sensitive to security concerns, and they'll pay top dollar for security hardware and software systems and evaluations. But on the other hand, day-to-day security practices are often neglected. Operating systems remain unpatched, firewalls are set up and then never touched again, and backup systems are rarely tested. Right now, however, Japan is going through a bit of a security transition in both their understanding of fraud and how susceptible their systems are to fraud and hacking. And to walk you through some of these important changes, today we sit down with Atsuyoshi Shimazu, founder and CEO of Caulis. Now, Caulis offers a distributed online fraud prevention service called Fraud Alert, and it's solid technology that has a special appeal in the Japanese market. Now, Atsuyoshi also explains how the Internet of Things is going to force all of us to radically change the way we think about online security and security in general. And he also explains why the instances and losses due to online fraud is set to skyrocket in Japan over the next 2 years. But Atsuyoshi tells that story much better than I can. So let's hear from our sponsor and get right to the interview. Some of Japan's largest companies are starting open innovation programs and actively reaching out to global startups. They're new at this, and that's where CREW, with 2 W's, comes in. CREW runs corporate startup accelerators for companies like Toyota and Panasonic and dozens more, and these programs are one of the best ways to jumpstart your business in Japan. Many are open to global startups, and they're completely free. Now, I've known and worked with the CREW team, and they're probably doing more than anyone to bridge the gap between corporate Japan and global startups. So drop by CREW with 2 W's .me/4-startups and get started. So I'm sitting here with Atsuyoshi Shimazu of Caulis, the makers of Fraud Alert, which is an online security and fraud prevention tool. But I'm sure you can explain it much better than I can. So thanks for sitting down with me. And can you tell me a bit about what Fraud Alert does and what Caulis is?
Fraud Alert protects the corporate website from the fraud attack, such as brute force attacks. At first, we protect the login page and also conversion page, such as money transfer pages.
You're preventing unauthorized access to web pages and monitoring the behavior on those pages as well.
Yeah. Also, we protect the smartphone apps. We check how to type the word and the behavior.
So like behavioral profiling?
Yes.
Okay. So how does it work exactly? Do the systems make a API call to your systems? Is there code level integration?
Yes.
How does the system work?
First, the client should introduce our JavaScript in their login page. And also, clients should set the API connection to our web servers.
And there's a different JavaScript callback in every page so you can track users' behavior.
Yes.
What type of things qualify as unusual user behavior?
I'm using the MacBook and using the Google Chrome in the location of the Otemachi area. So this is unusual my behaviors. But if the hackers use the same ID and password, but they use Windows 10 and Internet Explorer outside of Japan, this user is behaviors not normal.
Okay. So, right. So if someone's coming in from a new location, or if the same IP address tries to log in with a bunch of different usernames, that all looks suspicious.
Yes.
Does Fraud Alert provide authentication and authorization services as well, or is it simply
Focusing on the detection.
detection? Tell me about your customers. So in previous interviews and on your website, you talk about 50 million accounts being protected, but who are your actual customers? So are they ISPs or banks or small e-commerce sites?
Now we are focusing on the banking and the credit card corporate and also telecom carrier.
I want to dive into more detail about security in Japan. But before we do that, let's talk about you for a minute. So you founded Caulis in December of 15.
Yes.
So it's been a really crazy 2 years, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And before that, you were working with Okada-san.
Yes, right.
At the captcha company, Capi.
Yeah, yes, right.
So Capi is also in security. They do this kind of advanced captcha technology, right?
Yes.
So what made you decide to leave Capi and start your own company?
Yeah, I have two reasons. Captcha just only focusing on the protecting bots, but bad humans logging cannot protect. This is the first reason.
Actually, is CAPTCHA still effective? Because it seems like, at least like the text-based CAPTCHA, I think AIs are better than humans at it. At least they're better than me.
Second reason, CAPTCHA itself, all hacker and the user can see the CAPTCHA, but the hacker would solve the CAPTCHA solution. Some hackers show this is a way to hack and bypass the CAPTCHA way. CAPTCHA is just only the additional authentication, but the authentication is many additional authentication will be hacked. So we want to focus on the detection, not authentication. And also many electronics and also automotive will be connected into the internet. So connected car would have the password and the ID, but CAPTCHA is just on the web browser. So we want to spread the security domain to IoT industry.
That's a good point. It's kind of dangerous to have a startup that's really too focused on a specific technology.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense.
In the beginning of this month, NHK broadcast the collaboration with Toyota and startups.
So how is Toyota going to use your products? What are they going to use them for?
Toyota now facing the sharing economy's business model, and drivers can ride so many automotives. So ID and password and identification is very important.
Let's look into this a little more. What will Toyota be doing in the sharing economy? Are they talking about having individual cars that different people can use, sort of like a car sharing program?
Also, yes. They want to transit the business model, human-centric automotive car-like providers.
So when we move from the traditional web and mobile internet, which is primarily username password based, and we're all used to typing those in.
Yes, right.
When we move to IoT, when we move to something like an automobile, you're not using a username and password anymore.
But they have so many apps. The apps need to input the ID and password. After input the Toyota's ID and password, the apps shows this is a good right way to the destination, or you drive so many kilometers, so you should go to the car check.
Okay, you'll be providing fraud detection for their web applications and mobile applications.
This is a mid-term strategy of Toyota. Car-centric is a 20th century's business model in this century, and they will transit human-centric car providers.
Customer-centric, so it's a relationship not just with the driver, but with everyone in the family that might be driving the car.
Good. Yes.
Or different people in the company who are driving the company car. Interesting. Yeah. Boy, that is going to be a big change for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense that fraud detection is going to become more and more important as we move towards Internet of Things and more integrated services across a lot of different devices.
Yes.
Let's talk a bit about the problem of fraud in Japan.
It's a very nervous situation in Japan. Japan government did a survey at the end of 2015. One-third IPO company have the damage from the fraud.
Yeah, I've seen that number. So 1/3 of all public companies have said they've suffered damage from fraud. But that's a really broad statement. Does that mean internet fraud or credit card fraud, or does that include things like employees stealing from them?
Online banking was stolen 3 billion yen in 2015. 11.3 billion Japanese yen chargeback damage. Chargeback means the someone steals the credit card information and use unauthorized purchase.
That is about $120 million?
Yeah.
So there's $120 million of credit card fraud in Japan every year.
But the damage increasing every year. Before 2013, there is no damage in Japan because many browser doesn't have the translating function. In the end of 2012 and the beginning of 2013, every Firefox, Google Chrome, Internet Explorer have the function language translations. So many hackers, this is a Japan bank, this is a e-commerce, this is a credit card. So many hackers attacked in Japan.
Before, the Japanese language just made it more difficult. Yeah, it was a language barrier, not a security barrier.
Yes.
Of that credit card fraud, what % of it is online fraud versus offline?
Maybe offline is more bigger.
Okay, so most of it is offline.
Yeah, such as stolen credit card using. It's maybe 60%.
Okay.
But online damage increasing year by year. In 2020, the online damage will be overcome the offline damage, I think.
That's a real problem, and it's something that anyone doing business in Japan needs to worry about. But when we're looking at Japan, we're talking about $120 million in credit card fraud a year. But in the US, that level is about $8.5 billion a year.
Oh.
So it's interesting. So Japan has an economy that's about 30% as big as the US, but it only has about 1.5% of the credit card fraud.
Yeah.
Why?
Many Japanese use in cash. The credit card usage rate will be 20 to 30%. Now 70% will be paid with cash.
Well, even taking that into account, so even if there was 3 times more credit card transactions, that you would still only be looking at 4.5%, 5% the level of fraud of the US.
Maybe still the language barrier will be protected in Japan.
But like you say, that language barrier, it's really false security.
Yeah, but still the credit card and some e-commerce should require the users additional authentications.
So right now, is most of the credit card fraud in Japan coming from outside Japan?
I think so. For example, one of the big e-commerce service introduced name recognition authentication. If the website recognizes this user is malicious, after pushing the button of the purchase, please put your name kana language.
Okay.
The fraud stopped.
Wow, so just making them input something in kana.
Kana.
Well, yeah, if you don't speak Japanese, but again, that's not really real security because you can go to half a dozen different translation websites and get it to do that.
Yeah.
So that will only slow the hackers down for a month or two, I think.
Yeah. So it's a temporary authentication, I think.
Right. Before you mentioned that it wasn't just credit cards, but things like point systems and airline miles are a really big target for fraud these days.
Yes, right. Because the mileage could be changed to the Bitcoin or electric money. So hackers think mileage is one type of the money. In Japan, too much authentications and the usability lost. So, such as a big airline company have so many young people and older men. Older men cannot recognize how to put the short mail numbers into the website. So they dropped and they changed the airline company. So this is a trade-off, security and usabilities.
Yeah, almost every software system you'll ever write, that's the trade-off between security and usability.
Yeah.
So how do you handle that? Let's say, for example, someone logs into one of your customer sites and you detect that they're engaging in suspicious behavior. Say they go directly from login and directly to like the exchange points page instead of like a My Account or something like that. What happens then? What does the user see?
They suggest please use the additional authentication. Or now we have a login attempt. Is it yours? Send email for confirmation of login.
Oh, okay. So maybe before the transaction's finalized, they need to confirm by email or enter some other identifying information.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. You know, earlier this year, there was a couple of really big ransomware attacks, both in the US and in Europe. Did those affect Japan?
Yes. In this February to May, there are so many attacks. Some clients, they want to introduce our solution during Golden Week, but they have another ransomware attack, so please stop. Because the damage was so huge.
Now, I know ransomware attacks aren't something you can prevent. I mean, that's just basic system-level security that the clients need to do. But do you think Japanese companies are particularly susceptible to ransomware attacks?
I think so. But they have the Sun Banking introduced many solutions for ransomware protections, but other industry cannot afford to introduce so many solutions because of their budget. There are very few companies who put the CIO, Chief Information Officer, Chief Security Officers, Chief Information Security Officers. The position of CIO and CSO is a little bit lower position in Japan.
Yeah, in Japan, a CIO, even a CTO is usually 2 or 3 levels below the CEO. They're pretty far down there.
Yeah. So Japanese structures problems. In United States, the CEO, COO, or CXO is a same grade, but in Japan, the CIO is a very lower level. So they need more security solutions.
I've noticed that one of the things that has struck me as strange in Japan for the last 20 years plus I've been working in technology here, Japanese companies are very, very slow to upgrade their public servers. Even for security patches, or is that changing? Are people becoming more aware of the importance of security here?
Yes, in Japan, the system integrators such as NTT, IBM, they have so huge power for clients. If the banking introduce IBM solutions, they cannot change the solutions without IBM power.
Right.
Yeah.
In Japan, the systems integrators have huge power over their clients.
Yes. The leading company recognized this situation is very dangerous. So many banking decide to introduce clouds and hosting servers. It's very good for their business and also their security.
So you think the move to cloud is going to result in a significant increase in security? Yes. That makes sense. I think it will, because it takes the responsibility for upgrades and server downtime off of the client and makes it this automatic process.
So some bankers said if they want to introduce this type of the new technologies, their system made by system integrators. So introducing this new technology, it costs 2 to 3 years. System requirement setting, this is 6 months.
Right. Yeah. Where any startup could do it in a month.
Yeah. So they decided to transit to the cloud business. After introducing cloud is very popular in Japan, the Japanese traditional company can follow the technology's improvement.
Absolutely. And the move to the cloud has been great for companies like you as well.
Yes. 2 to 3 years is a very long to introduce new technologies.
I think the big transition to cloud computing happened after the 2011 earthquake, when suddenly all of these companies couldn't run their own data centers. But over the last 3 or 4 years, it really seems to have accelerated the move into the cloud. A few months ago, in a different interview, you mentioned that you were talking with some insurance companies about offering, well, basically hacking insurance.
Yes.
How would that work? That sounds really interesting.
Okay. Main purpose of the transit to the security to insurance. This is enterprise domain. This is a small business. In Japan, small business company doesn't have an IT department, so they want to buy our solution, not security, but insurance.
From an insurance point of view, so what is the asset that's being insured? I mean, how do companies determine the value or the damage from a hack? Or it just seems like a very difficult thing.
Yeah, good point. Now we are discussing so many insurance companies, but at first we gathered so many clients' data. This is the total login. This is we can see each industry's hackers attacks rate. We provide the data to the insurance companies. Insurance company will calculate the price. So we provide how many hackers will attack to the banking or credit card, e-commerce. We gather the data and we sell to the insurance company.
Okay.
The insurance company will make the insurance and we resell to our
clients.
Yes, this is a business model.
When do you think you'll be able to do that?
In next month, we will release the press release with insurance company in Japan.
Wow. Okay, so September, probably by the time this episode airs, you'll be offering hacker insurance.
Yeah.
Interesting. And insurance is easy to sell in Japan.
Yes, right.
Japan is kind of over-insured by world standards.
Yes.
So that's a really interesting business model.
Yeah. We already have a discussion with 5 to 6 insurance company in Japan. They have no data of how many hackers will be in Japan. So, but we have this type of data.
Do you have plans for international expansion?
Yes, and we have discussion with Indonesian banking or Malaysian banking. The Indonesians and Malaysians and Singapore, all government introduced to fintech investment on venture capital. In Southeast Asia is a very good market for fintech.
Some industries, it makes sense that it's very local and it's hard to go global.
Yeah.
Services are like that. But,
Yes.
but security seems like it almost has to be global. There's an advantage to being global because most of the hacking and the threats are coming from overseas.
Yes. We have maybe 7 to 9 competitors in all over the world, but all competitors focusing on such as Facebook or Google, the giants. So Southeast Asia, there's a little bit blue ocean. So we have another stakeholder, ISI Dentsu. They have so many branches in Southeast Asia. So they offer our solution to many Southeast Asians, telecom or banking or credit card company.
So the fraud detection startups around the world, and not even startups, the IBMs and the fraud detection companies around the world, the technology and the approach is pretty much the same. The real difference is in the sales function and the pricing.
Yeah, pricing is maybe 120 or 130 cheaper now because now we got the investment or debt finance from the banking and we sell very lower, cheapest price. After selling, we can gather the data.
Right.
This is but the IBM will selling with very highest price,
Yeah, well, I mean, the advantage of being a startup is you do get to come in from the bottom of the market,
Yeah.
the lower price, and eventually push out the
Yes.
IBMs,
Yes.
the threat matrices.
Yes.
And let's talk about Japan in general. We were talking before that credit card fraud and online fraud from inside Japan is still relatively rare. Most of the attacks are coming from outside Japan. Do you think this is changing? Do you think the fraud rate inside Japan is increasing, or is it kind of staying the same?
A little bit increasing, I think, because many dark websites selling the data of this is the Japanese ID and password list. Some Japanese will buy the dark web and they put the ID and password, storing the information, individual information, financial assets.
So just because hacking is becoming so much easier than it used to be,
Yes.
more people are doing it.
Yeah. Traditional hackers see the weakness of the system and research and put their malware or ransomwares.
Right.
It is very hard.
Right. Hacking used to be hard.
Yeah.
It took some serious technical skills.
Yes. But the fraud is just only purchase ID and password and put ID and password. It's no technical hacking.
Yeah. You're right. Every year it becomes easier and easier, so we should expect more and more people to be doing it.
There are so many lists of the how to hack the Google, how to hack the Apple. They can download the source of the hacking tool.
Right. Let me ask you, other than using Fraud Alert, what advice do you have for people who are running e-commerce sites and blogs or anything with a login? What advice do you have for them about?
At first, they should see how many rate of the hackers attacks. After founding this company, I met so many CIO, CSO, maybe 20 to 30 CIO, CSOs, but they don't know how many fraud attacks count their own website. No one knows.
So they're not even paying attention to it?
Yes.
Do they know how to monitor it, or is it all just new to them?
Maybe new to them.
Okay.
Because in Japan, the CIO, CSO is not a key person. Maybe almost administrators, the head of administrator will promote the CIO, CSO department. So
well, the sad thing is that in most large Japanese companies, the equivalent of the CIO or the CTO is the one that he's used to managing the systems integrators. He's used to working with outsourcing companies.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they're not really a technical person. All of the technical knowledge is in their system integrator, not in their company.
Yes. Last month, I checked how old is each country's CIOs. Japan is almost the end of 50s, or at least middle of 50s. Okay. But in United States, maybe the end of 20s or beginning of the 30s, and CSO is very young people.
Oh, CSO.
CSO.
CIO, I'd imagine, be a little older.
Yes. The CSO is a very young and techy, but in Japan, CSO is just only accounting, financial head is a CSO. I cannot.
Do most public companies have a chief security officer, a CSO?
In Japan, 54%. 54 is just only the back office's last position, or they hired as a CSO outside of the company.
And is the number much higher in America?
88, I think.
88% of public companies have a chief security
I have
officer?
the data, so I will send the report.
Okay, that is quite a difference then. Do you have any advice for general internet users and consumers about how to stay safe on the internet?
Yes. Do you know, have I been pwned? This is a site name.
Have I been pawned?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. That's a great one. We'll put a link up on the site.
Yes. I always introduce this website to Japan's CSO or my friends. At first, general user put their own email address to this website, check. And after this mail address and ID was stolen.
Have I Been Pawned is a great site to see if your identity has been stolen or your account has been hacked. and we'll put a link up on the page so
please.
the users can go and check it out, because that's important information.
Yes. Also, please separate each website's ID and password. In Japan, 70% Japanese use same ID and password all web service.
Get a password manager.
Yeah.
There's many good ones out there. Pick one.
Yes.
Hey, well, listen, before we wrap up, I want to ask you what I call my magic wand question. And that is, if I gave you a magic wand and I said you could change one thing about Japan, anything at all, the education system, the way people think about risk, the way people think about failure, anything at all, to make it better for startups in Japan, what would you change?
I want to make all employees have a time to travel all over the world. And Masa, our head of the business planning, he lived in England, Malaysia, China, Singapore. He has so many various friends and various experience. So he's a big perspective because he's just only 27.
Would you say the best way to do that would be, for example, companies be more willing to send employees to international conferences? Or do you think after university, students should spend 1 year living somewhere else?
Yes. Many Japanese just only live in Japan or just have Japanese friends. It's a very close world. I want young people have a more global perspective. If Masa go to the England has so talented people in England from all over the world. Outside of the Japan's young people were so experienced, so talented people. But Japan is the same type of Japanese. So I don't know how.
It's interesting. A number of my guests before have said it's important for Japanese to go overseas to improve their creativity. But it sounds like you're talking about something a little bit different. So is it that overseas is more competitive than in Japan? And that it forces people into this competitive nature and to be kind of the best in the world?
Yeah.
So it's the same way, for example, that you were saying Japanese websites could get away with being kind of sloppy with security because the Japanese language protected them, where English language sites have to be the most secure in the world because everyone's attacking them.
I think so.
So it's that kind of dynamic. You have to compete harder?
But we have an advantage of the blacklist APIs. We will connect to the Google, Facebook, Apple's. All players should release the data each other's.
So the different organizations should share the blacklist and share security information. And that's happening now, right?
Now, no.
No?
No. Every CSO have a trouble to how to share the hackers list. So previous century, security is more concrete and not shared.
It was physical.
Yes. So we want to make our companies risk-sharing companies.
Well, I think a lot of companies are talking about the importance of that.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be critically important because the hackers are all sharing information.
Yeah.
So the good guys have to share information or they're going to lose.
It's a good point. But the way of hack will be improving. But the malwares, if this malware attack to the Mizuho banking share to the other banking, this malware wouldn't be effective.
So do you think we're going to get to a point where the security companies are going to start sharing this information soon?
No.
Not soon?
Not soon.
Oh, that's too bad.
But IoT decade, each device will be connected to the internet. So IoT itself make situation change, I think.
Okay.
Because IoT automotive is dangerous for drivers.
It'll force industry to start taking security seriously.
Yes.
Well, that'll be a good thing. Well, listen, Atsuyoshi, I want to thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Your journey to success in Japan will involve some twists and turns. In trying to navigate new terrain, planning the safest, most effective way through on your own can be overwhelming. The Carter Group have been using market intelligence and research to guide Japan entrants for decades. They've honed an agile, cost-effective, but consultative approach that will help you find the perfect product-market fit, explore user and consumer dynamics, and act as an honest broker to let you know the reputation and track record of potential partners here in Japan. And when you're ready to go, their executive search team can also help you hire the right people to drive your business forward. So if you haven't got Japan completely figured out yet, the Carter Group can help you out. And we're back. Okay, I admit that my view of security was becoming a bit out of date. I was still thinking in terms of usernames and passwords and CAPTCHA. Although I've got to say, I won't be sorry to see CAPTCHA go. Those things drive me nuts. And it's pretty much gotten to the point where computers are better at proving they're human than I am. And don't talk to me about biometrics. Biometrics are terrible security. You can't keep them secret, you can't change them, and biometric systems tend to be hacked within months of their commercial release. And that's really the point, I suppose. Security is not about proving to a computer that you are the human you say you are. It's proving that you, as a human or as a machine, have the right to ask for the action you're requesting, whether that's viewing a web page or transferring money. Not only do computers look more like humans to other computers than real humans do, but more and more we humans are going to be relying on our intelligent agents and computer code to act on our behalf. Atsuyoshi's fraud alert system is an excellent approach to, and an important part of, the future security solution. Different companies and individuals sharing identifying information on bad actors. Now, that won't completely stop the bad guys, but it will make things a lot more expensive for them. To really make this work on a global scale, however, requires cooperation. It requires multinational companies all over the globe to share information about when and how they've been hacked, and who's doing it. And so far, most companies have been very reluctant to do so because of legal liabilities and concerns that it would negatively affect their corporate image and perhaps their stock price if news got out that their systems had been hacked. Perhaps third-party companies like Caulis will be able to bridge that gap by providing the information without directly identifying the target. That would make things a lot harder on the hackers, and that's always a good thing. If you've got thoughts on hacking, cracking, and computer security in general, other than the fact that I've been using hackers in an overly broad sense, then Atsuyoshi and I would love to hear from you. So come by disruptingjapan.com/show101 and let us know what you think. When you come by the site, you'll see all the links and resources that Atsuyoshi and I talked about in the resources section of the post. But most of all, thanks for listening. And thank you for letting people interested in Japanese startups know about the show. I'm Tim Romero, and thanks for listening to Disrupting Japan.